Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Killer Cafe. I'm your host, as always, Spooky. Welcome. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I hope you all enjoy the video. Today, we are finally talking about the final episode of season 1 of Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch. I'm sorry this was late. It's like 2 weeks late, I think. I unfortunately got the flu. Yay. So, anywho, not the point. So, we're finally sitting down. We're talking about episode 6, and it ended on a really good note. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to grab a blanket, grab a coffee, and let's dive on into the mystery at Blind Frog Ranch. Episode 6 is called Answers. It starts off obviously where we picked it back up from episode 5, where Chad bolts off into the evening to go check on his family and to see what's going on with this supposed skinwalker. And now the producers are also saying, hey, grab your stuff, we gotta catch up with Chad, let's go. So they take off as well. They go in their little side-by-sides and sprint off into the night. Once they get there, they verify with Chad that the family is okay, everyone is fine, but they have to find out where this person is, if this is an actual person, if they're still on the property at all. So everyone does start splitting up. They're starting walking around looking, and they realize they're not really covering much area, so they come back together, and Charlie decides to split everyone off properly. So Charlie and Chad take the woods, Duane does the side-by-side, and I believe that Eric stays up on the road to watch just in case something does come around. So they're all splitting off, verifying, checking around, trying to make sure everything's okay, hollering into the night, trying to suss this person out, but they don't find anything.
Get my hands on him. What's that over there? Hey! Hey! What? Get out of here.
The trees are very dense in that area, and even when they get down to the creek where the camera was, there's no one. And Charlie even says that there's like no footprints, no tire marks, nothing, and they can't see him, so they obviously aren't sure where he went. So they decide, all right, let's just pack up for the night and head on back to our respective cabins. And as they're walking away, everybody pretty much agrees that, yeah, it was a skinwalker. It has to be a skinwalker for it to disappear so quickly. Then we start flashing towards different residents of the town talking about the skinwalkers. A lot of them are saying how the cows are mutilated, or they might follow you home if you're not careful. Other people say that there are people in the town who have seen people shift into coyotes or wolves of that creature. And the final one woman is just pretty much stating how if you're not careful and you catch them, they could follow you home and torment you. We then flash to Duane talking about how he put in a large amount of money into this project and he really wants to get his return from it. The issues, though, is that every time they think they're getting close, weird occurrences start to happen around the ranch, whether it be electronic, machinery, even weird sightings like they're having now. He's not really sure what's going on. He wants to get to the bottom of it, but he also says that him being the boss, even though the weird occurrences are happening, he needs to shift everybody's priorities from the weird occurrences back to the goal. So we then see that they're trying to find better targets to start digging with the rat hole rig. They're not really sure where to go, but they decide to go back up to the unmarked fault zone and decide to do some testing around there to see if they can't find a cavern.
Exactly where to drill into it. So what we're doing here is called resistivity testing.
They take these little probes, they mark them out, and they send a current through the two steel probes to see if there's a cavern. The higher the number, the bigger the cavern, and so on and so forth. As they're looking through, they realize that with the bedrock, they're not probably able to get down as deep as they want. But Chad shows Eric that they have this prior, I want to say it's like a prior drill bit or rig of some kind that had broken off in the bedrock, and they believe that it is in a cavern. So they hook the controls up to that to test for the spot. They take one part and connect it to the rig that is inside of a supposed cavern, and then they also take it and attach it to another steel stake that is further down, and they send a charge through. Well, Charlie says that it was 18.86, and Chad and Eric walk up. Chad's like really mad about it, so he walks up and he decides to look at it as well, and realizes that there's no decimal.
That's not... There's no period on there.
Oh, really?
Hey, come look at this, Eric.
What you got?
Look at this. It's 1800.
Oh, wow.
It's 1886. So they think they have a cavern on their hands. This is a very, very high number. This is astronomical. Eric gets super excited because he realizes that there's a possible cavern and they might have just found their dry entrance. So they go tell Duane, and he says, okay, you found a spot to dig, you found a possible cavern, I'll get that rat hole rig out there and we'll start going. So as they're digging, they're looking for two specific things. They're looking for a deviation in the type of soil, but they're also looking for a pressure with this rig. So as they're pushing down into the rig, they're supposed to almost feel this pressure release as they hit the cavern. And that's what they're hoping for. So as they're going, they're starting to see a mixture of dry and wet. And showing water to them, they get very excited because it might show the Aztec system that they were using, where if you hit a certain thing and then it just floods out. So they're fairly certain they found the entrance. But they know that once they do find the cavern, that it will have no resistance. So they continue digging. Fortunately, though, like everything else that they get sucked into, they dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and they start to realize at the 30-foot mark, which is where they think the cavern is at, the man operating the rat hole rig says he's having to put more pressure instead of less. And that makes them realize that they're hitting clay. And Eric proceeds to say that sometimes, instead of showing a cavern, this testing that they did with clay especially can misread. And instead of finding a cavern, it could be something else entirely, like the clay. We then flash to them sitting in front of the cabin talking about how the season is coming to an end. The snow is starting to fall, and soon it is going to rain down on them. So they're trying to decide together where to dig the last hole for the season. And as they're going back and forth, Duane decides he's going to go around the circle and ask each person where they think that their last dig should be. So he starts with Chad, and Chad states that they should go to the energy zone. There have been many different occurrences. They are not sure what is going on there. They can make sand into metal, and they want, or at least he wants, to see what's going on there. If there is something in there, if there's a cavern, anything of the nature, he wants to figure out what's going on. After he says that, Charlie says the same thing. He says, I agree with Chad. I think it's the best decision for us. And Eric chimes in as well and said, yeah, the energy zone is where we should probably go. So with them all in agreement, they decide to grab the rat hole, go over to the energy zone, and they decide to dig there. So they go all the way to the end of the drill bit at 85 feet and they find nothing. So obviously, Duane's a little upset. You know, he keeps saying how every time we try, we miss, and I'm not sure what's going on, but we have to figure out what's going on. There has to be something that is happening in the energy zone.
So far, we missed on all the targets that we drilled in.
It's frustrating.
But I'll tell you what,
There's something going on here that's creating a huge energy zone.
And
come hell or high water, we will get to the bottom of it.
So they decide they're going to create a pulley system with scrapers along the side. Now, Duane is a engineering genius, I swear. The way he built this scraper is so crazy. So the way it works is it is a like four-cornered pulley system. So it's a circle, and it has four little corners that are edged that have scrapers attached to them, and then obviously they come to the point for the pulleys. So the base is for collecting samples, and the scrapers will lay flat against the edges and as it goes down, and once they decide to pull it up, they will deploy the scrapers out and they will scrape up along the 85 feet to get all the samples they possibly can. This is a crazy thing, but he does it so beautifully. Like, they're really hoping to find samples, but they're also hoping to find gold. He really wants to find if there's any type of gold in this ground or in this energy zone, and might possibly explain why they're having these weird energy fluctuations. So they come out together at night, they drop down the scraper, deploy the scrapes, and start coming back up. They do stop about 80 to 83 feet. I don't think they go all the way down. And it does get caught.
Duck.
too tight, Chad.
Let her down.
They are able to, thankfully, unstick it. But it's just so funny because Duane even says as they're doing it, he goes, obviously, when everything's running smoothly, we have to have something go wrong. It can't ever go perfect. We always have to have one issue happen when it's in the energy zone. Nothing can ever go right.
It seems like every time we make some progress, something else steps up and starts fighting us.
So they pull it up and they start to notice that the samples aren't normal brown samples. They're blue. And as they're looking at it, Eric says that it's very rare. Like, this is not a normal occurrence. And he even says that it might be iridium, but they aren't sure. So he decides what he's going to do is he's going to go around and go throughout the property with Chad and check other places for possible iridium on the property. Because if they're finding other iridium on the property, then this will show that there is a possible iridium deposit on this property in the energy zone specifically, and could be causing a lot of these issues. So they go around, and as they're going, they go up to an old creek and they find chunks of meteorite. And Eric goes on to say that because of finding these chunks of meteorite, then that means there's a high probability of iridium, because iridium is attached to meteorites. Later on, Eric decides to head up to the mountains and up on a stream to gain more samples, because he wants to have multiple samples from different areas on the property. As he's doing so, though, all of a sudden, a thunderstorm rolls in. And Eric, I mean, it's kind of comical because Eric's like, of course I would have to be up on a mountain with a shovel in the middle of a thunderstorm. So he starts hiking down trying to get out there. Thankfully, he doesn't get hurt. He does fall. And you like see it with the camera that he falls, and he's like, oh man, I got blood on me. It's like, yeah, dude, you just fell. Of course you have blood on you.
Blood all over.
As that is all happening, we flip to Charlie Boy, and he explains how the ranch will randomly send thunderstorms or any type of weather to always mess up plans. It's like the land knows and is not willing to give up its secrets. Then later on the next day, Eric and Chad come together to start going through each sample bag to see what they can find. So they have one from the hole, one from the creek, and another from up in the mountains. And they want to see if there's any iridium in any of the samples. So they do make a water sift, they throw it in the samples, and Eric goes to say that having the water turn certain colors is a very good sign, especially if it's like a muddy, reddy brown, because that means there's an iron deposit and iridium is attracted to iron. So they start to pan for this iridium, and the only iridium they do, or possible iridium they do find, is in obviously the pan that was from the scraping exhibition that they did the previous night. So Eric then goes on to talk about how when the meteorite came through that killed the dinosaurs, it shot iridium up into the atmosphere and fell down. So there's a possibility that because this meteorite happened in, I believe, Mexico, there's a high probability that there's a high concentration of iridium in this area due to how close it is to Mexico. They find these blue little flakes and they decide to test them because they want to see what it actually is. They decide to test them with the XRF gun and it shoots up wildly. It's at, like, he said that if we're at like 50 or 60 parts per million, like, it'll be fine, it'll be great, like, we can make a good money off of this. It shoots all the way up to over 800,000 parts per million.
Come on, iridium.
Hey,
50.
That's 50 parts per million?
61.
Yeah, let's
So
go.
it's still running.
Oh,
it's still running. It's going up.
97.
80 parts per million. Oh my.
The early stages of the process, it's coming up 80 parts per million.
We've got iridium, guys.
That was significant in itself. If it had ended at that point, I would have been very happy.
This is the full scan here. This is the
Yeah.
final. Oh, 804,000?
And those specks are pure iridium. It jumped up to 800,000. Like, what?
Now that's a lot, and it's wild. So all of them get super stoked. Charlie Boy, Eric, and Chad are all pretty excited. Duane doesn't show much emotion, which is always funny to me. I love it. But he even states he's not giving up on the caves. He's not going to give up on the box. He's not going to give up on the gold. But this could be a very lucrative business if they do find a very good iridium deposit mine. And it would probably help to push them forward in the search for whatever is going on this land with the gold in the box. And then finally, they all come together for the season. It's one last little drink together. They're all standing around outside the cabin, and they start talking about the season and what they found and what all has happened. Eric goes on to talk about the iridium and talks about how this is what's possibly causing all of these issues with the electronics and the machines, and maybe some of the occurrences happening on the actual property itself. He said that high concentration of iridium can be sometimes very bad for the human, but it can also cause a lot of more electronical issues than what people realize. Then Chad talks about how for the next 6 months, all he'll be able to think about is that box and how he can't wait to go dive back on in and figure out what is going on what is going on inside of that box. Chad and Charlie obviously laugh together, and Duane even says that, you know, it was a great season and he can't wait to get back at it next time. And then they end the episode by clinking their little beer bottles together and celebrate the season.
So here's the deal, fellas. See, it's high risk out here, but the reward is just overwhelming. And no risk, no fun. I hate to admit it, but I'm kind of one of those junkies, and I think I raised one just like me.
And that's where episode 6 ends. It's a beautiful little moment of all 4 guys coming together, talking about what they've done and all the chaos that has ensued with it. I adored season 1. Season 2 gets wilder and crazier, and I'm so stoked to rewatch season 2 as well because I just enjoy it. So Yeah, with all that being said, I hope you all did enjoy watching. If you have seen season 1, let me know down in the comments below. If you've seen season 2, let me know. Do you want to hear more about season 2? Would you like me to recap them? I might still recap them. I might do a little something else beforehand and then recap season 2. But I really want to finish this out strong. Do all 3 seasons. Why not? But with all that being said, I love you all. Stay safe. Have a spooktacular day. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.